Hello, and a very pleasant good day to you wherever you may be. Well, welcome to a baseball video. It's been a while since we've done one of these, but Gabriel and I went to see the Tampa Bay Rays at the Trop yesterday take on the Evil Empire.
The Yankees.
Yes. Did the Rays win?
Yes.
The Rays won 3-1 yesterday, so we're excited about that. And we want to get back into baseball today, but we're going to do something a little bit different than what we've done before. This is going to be the start of a series that we're going to do for each division, and this is the first one today for the first division. Gabriel, why don't you tell them what we're going to do?
So, we're going to be creating, like, all-time MLB teams. Like, you know, in NBA 2K, they have all-time NBA teams. So, like, obviously, like, the Bucks would have, like, Giannis, but also Kareem Abdul-Jabbar. So, this is like that. And today we're going to be just doing the 5 teams in the AL East, so the Orioles, Red Sox, Yankees, Blue Jays, and Rays. So, I'm going to do 3 teams. He's going to do 2. Yep. And it's basically just any player who, like, had an impact on a team, really.
Yeah, and we kind of...
was good.
Yeah, had to be really good. A lot of Hall of Famers on our list. Yes. No spoilers, but... And we also, the way that Gabriel put this together, we argued about it a little bit, but not too much, is that generally, like, players that were on a team for longer and contributed for like 3, 4, 5, maybe 10 years even, had a better chance of making the list than a player that just had like one really good year with the team. So,
for an example, like, this will give it away, but for the Orioles, our center fielder is Adam Jones. Now, the reason I didn't put Cedric Mullins is because he's only been with the team for like 3 years, and he's only had like 1 good year, so that's why. And Adam Jones had like 5 good years with the Orioles.
So that kind of a little teaser. Do you want to just go ahead and start Baltimore?
Okay,
then?
So first team, Baltimore Orioles. So we're going to be doing obviously the starting lineup, no bench, and we're going to be doing 1 starting pitcher and 2 bullpen arms. So, the catcher is going to be Matt Wieters. There wasn't really a lot of, like, players to choose from, but Matt Wieters, I'm pretty sure, won a couple Gold Gloves, and he was a solid hitter. And for first base, we have Eddie Murray, who is very well known. He's a part of the 500 Home Run Club, played from the 70s to the 90s for also the Dodgers he played for, and was, like, an all-around great hitter, and a good defender, too. Second base, also not a great position for the Orioles. That's Bobby Gritsch. Now, I don't really know much about Bobby Gritsch, but he played for the Angels too, and he played in the 70s and early 80s.
And I only know about him really for playing RBI baseball on the original Nintendo in the 1980s. For some reason I would always play as the Red Sox, but we would play against the California, because they were the California Angels then. And I would always see Gritsch come up for the Angels, Bobby Gritsch. So that game's from like 1987. So that's how I knew about Bobby Gritsch.
So, third base, pretty obvious. The best defender of all time, Brooks Robinson, won like 16 Gold Gloves or something.
Kind of without question.
Yeah, he's just a great fielder, and he's a pretty good hitter. So yeah, he's one of their best players. Shortstop, this is probably the best player in the history of the Orioles. This is Cal Ripken Jr.
Ooh, not the next guy, you don't think?
He spent his whole career with the Orioles, and
all right.
Obviously had the most consecutive games played streak.
We can agree that Cal should be the Orioles starting shortstop.
Yes.
Okay. I'm not sure. I'm not sure he's the greatest player in the history of the franchise, but
okay. And by the way.
Oh yeah, this right here. This. Look at this thing, this giant club that Gabriel has on his arm that you might have noticed.
Maybe, but I'm tired of telling the story.
Oh, so I'm just gonna tell it now?
No, we don't have to say anything. I broke my arm. That's it.
Gabriel broke his arm. So happy summer vacation. Here's a broken arm.
Okay, so in left field we have Frank Robinson, who is one of the best players of all time. He won the Triple Crown in 1966 with the Orioles. He is a part of the 500 Home Run Club with 586 home runs.
And this is the guy that I think is the best player in Orioles history.
We can agree that
if I do say so myself.
So center field, we already gave it away. It's Adam Jones. And then in right field, a guy named Ken Singleton, who you guys probably never heard of, but he played in the late 70s and 80s like Bobby Gritsch, and he had an OPS of around 820, so not terrible.
Yeah, he had some seasons where he hit pretty well, and I think I looked him up. He actually had over 2,000 career hits and hit like almost 250 career home runs, and actually
I'm pretty sure he had over 1,000 RBIs too.
Yeah, and he had a whole string of years through the 70s where his OBP was over 400 every year. So pretty solid player definitely in a pitcher's era back then.
Now for the starting pitcher, this was pretty obvious. It's Jim Palmer. Of course, Jim Palmer won, I'm pretty sure, like 2 Cy Young Awards. He played on those great late 60s, early 70s teams with Frank Robinson and Brooks Robinson. And then for the 2 bullpen arms, we have Greg Olsen, who I'm pretty sure played in the 90s in the steroid era. But, and by the way, we are going to be including steroid guys on these lists.
Yes, there will be some.
Okay, so Greg Olsen, he pitched pretty well. He was like a career 3-ish ERA guy. He had I think 100-ish saves for his career, but yeah. And then for the second bullpen guy, we have Zach Britton, who of course was great for the Orioles in the early to mid 2000s.
Yep.
So that's the Orioles.
That's the Orioles. We know you're going to agree to disagree with a lot of these lists because teams like some of these were tough, and this next team that I'm going to do, which is the Red Sox, we just went in alphabetical order for the division. There were some tough decisions on some of these, but I have to say, honestly, I felt like as you were doing these lists, because the Red Sox have such a long history, they've been around for over 100 years, the Yankees have been around for over 100 years, and we felt like, ooh, that's going to be hard, but they were actually the easy ones. I think when it came to
the Yankees and the Red Sox were the easiest.
Yeah, when it came to the Rays, who have only been around now for 24 years, they were actually tough because
they were the hardest team.
Yeah, they've got so many kind of middling players. They have a couple players that were pretty obvious, but it was just harder to do research because they don't have any real clear-cut superstars at those positions. So anyway, the Red Sox. So leading it off at catcher with the Red Sox, I'm going the wrong way, he's waving this way, himself, Pudge, Carlton Fisk, of course. Who else at catcher? Mm-hmm. Legendary, and played for, I think, 24 seasons for the Red Sox and the White Sox. First base, probably the most dominant hitter if you look at the era from about 1929 to about 1933 in baseball. You could make the argument that it was still Babe Ruth or possibly Lou Gehrig, but Jimmy Fox at first base for the Red Sox, pretty much absolute clear-cut, over 500 career home runs, hit for a great average, just tremendous. Second base, really slick fielder, Bobby Doerr, and a guy that, another Hall of Famer that a lot of people kind of overlook and forget about at second base.
Played with Ted Williams.
Yeah, he played with Ted Williams. So he didn't get recognized as much on those teams in the 40s and 50s. Third base, somebody from my era, Wade Boggs, probably the greatest overall hitter of... Yeah. And I've got the old school Wade Boggs jersey on from his 2 years as a Devil Ray today in 98, 99. So probably the most dangerous hitter in terms of average of the late 80s. You could make the argument maybe Don Mattingly, maybe a young Tony Gwynn, but Wade Boggs, he just consistently hit 340, 350, 360 every year for about 4 or 5 years in a row in the late 80s and early 90s. So shortstop, another really slick fielder, pretty decent bat as well, although not known as much for his bat, but Joe Cronin, old-time player.
Yeah, he played and managed Ted Williams when Ted Williams hit 400 in 1941.
Yep. Left field, the most obvious one, I think, on the Red Sox, Ted Williams. Possibly the greatest hitter of all time when you look at average, on-base percentage, all of those things. Hit over 521 career home runs, so just unbelievable. And he missed, 5 years during his career serving in the military. Center field, a dead ball era player, Tris Speaker, that I get confused with another guy a lot when I try to remember statistics, so Gabriel corrected me on this one earlier. But Tris Speaker, 3,500 career hits, unbelievable all-around hitter, holds the all-time record with 792 career doubles. Is that ever going to be passed?
I don't know.
Probably not, because he played for over 20 years, too. So he basically averaged almost 40 doubles a year for 20 years
every
straight.
Year.
Yeah, unbelievable. Right field. Now, this one was a little bit more interesting, and I did have to agree with Gabriel on this one because I think that this is somebody who's really vastly underrated, and he played on the great Red Sox teams from in the mid-1970s and that 75 team, and he played with them right up into the 80s, and that's Dwight Evans. We felt like he put up some tremendous stats for them in right field. Mm-hmm. All right, starting pitcher. Who do you think? Yeah, it's Pedro. We went with Pedro over Roger Clemens.
Yes.
We felt like the stretch that Pedro had in the late 90s and early 2000s with the Red Sox during the absolute, bludgeon ball steroid era when, batting averages were up, RBIs were up, home runs were way up, and it was just so hard to be a pitcher then. He put up amazing stats. There was one year where his ERA was like less than half of the league average. I think that was in 99.
Yeah, the league average was like, 4 point something, and then he put up like a 1.6 ERA.
Yeah, so to take nothing away from the Rocket and Roger Clemens, we just felt like for the time that he played with the team, Pedro was more dominant than Clemens. Bullpen pitcher, Mr. himself, Craig Kimbrell. We watched Craig Kimbrell destroy the Rays and just completely shut them down, I don't know how many times, for a period of about 3 years from about 2016 to about 2018. He was the most dominant closer in baseball, and I don't think that can be argued. So we had to put him in there. Our last bullpen pitcher for the Red Sox might surprise you a little bit, but he actually had a string of really good years with the Red Sox in the early 2000 teens, and that's Koji Uohara. And you might be going, wait a minute, who? But he played with the Red Sox, I think it was 2013, 14, 15, and 16, and believe it or not, his whip every single one of those years was under 1, and in 2013 his whip was like .565, like it was ridiculous. So fun fact about Koji as well, he actually kept playing in Japan until the age of 44 and just retired 3 years ago in 2019 at the age of 44 from the Yomiuri Giants.
We had to look him up.
Yeah, we did, but we kind of thought that was cool. He kept his major league career went up until I think 2016 or 2017, like and then he went and played in Japan.
Yep.
For a couple of years. So, all right.
Okay, so next team, the New
Here
York
we go,
Yankees.
the Evil Empire.
So this is the most loaded team in baseball, probably. So
of course.
At catcher we have Yogi Berra. I mean, the Yankees have had so many good catchers over the years: Bill Dickey, Thurman Munson, but Yogi Berra is definitely the best. Probably the second best catcher of all time. Had over 350 career home runs, and he was just amazing.
Don't forget about Jorge Posada.
Oh, yeah, that's right.
Yeah?
Yes, he's very good, too. Okay, first base, best first baseman of all time, Lou Gehrig. Lou Gehrig, amazing, over 490 career home runs. Definitely would have had like 550, maybe even 600 if his career wasn't shortened due to his disease. But he played with Babe Ruth. He averaged like over 110 RBIs every single year from like 1925 to 1930, and he was just amazing. So, second base, this is probably the weakest position on the Yankees. This is Robin Synkino. Now, nothing against Robin Synkino. He did take steroids later in his career with the Mets, but Robin Synkino, he was actually very, very good defensive-wise in the late 2000s and early 2010s. He had that double play combo up the middle with Derek Jeter, and he was also a very good offensive player. He won a home run derby. Don't remember which year, but in the 2010s. Now, for third base, we have A-Rod, Alex Rodriguez. So you might be wondering why we didn't put him as a shortstop, but because he played third base with the Yankees because Derek Jeter was controlling shortstop. Now, onto that, Derek Jeter set shortstop. Now, Derek Jeter, Alex Rodriguez, probably the best like left side of the infield, maybe in baseball history. I mean, there's been a lot of those, but I mean, between Derek Jeter and his great fielding and his good bat. I mean, he had over 3,600 career hits.
Nice with the sarcasm.
I know.
Nice.
I don't know why he won 5 Gold Gloves, but and A-Rod was just a great all-around player. He did take steroids, but still, he had over almost 700 career home runs, and he was a great fielder. So, Left field, a little weaker position too.
And this one surprised me a little bit when Gabriel found this one and put it in there. We kind of went through a few others, and it was like, yeah, I guess it should be that guy.
Yeah, so this is Hideki Matsui. Hideki Matsui played with those great Yankees teams
Godzilla.
of the early 2000s and to mid 2000s when they had, A-Rod and Jeter. And he was a really good hitter. I mean, he was like the second coming of Ichiro. Pretty much.
He was Ichiro with a lot more power.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And not as much contact.
Yeah, not really the second coming of Ichiro maybe, but he was a good hitter. He just hit for more power than Ichiro and not quite the average.
Yeah.
But he was capable of putting up a 300 average.
Mm-hmm. And in center field, we have one of the best players of all time, Mickey Mantle. Now, Joe DiMaggio, I actually thought about putting Joe DiMaggio in left field, but that would be kind of cheating because that wasn't his position. So Mickey Mantle, I mean, he had over 500 career home runs, and he played only like 10 full seasons. He did play like 17 seasons, but lots of them were shortened by injuries, and yeah, he's just, I mean, if he didn't get injured, he might have like 700 career home runs. He'd be insane.
Yeah.
In right field, we have the great Bambino, Babe Ruth, the greatest player of all time. And he, you already know, he had over 700 career home runs, over 2,000 career RBIs, 340 career average. I mean, he's the best. And then for pitching, the starting pitcher is going to be Whitey Ford, the best pitcher in Yankees history. He had a string of years in the late 50s and early 60s where he might have been the best pitcher in baseball before Sandy Koufax came around. I mean, he won the Cy Young in 1961, I'm pretty sure, and he was just really good. And then in the bullpen, probably going to be the best bullpen in this whole series, we have Mariana Rivera. He's the greatest closer of all time, 652 saves. Mm-hmm. I mean, he was just dominant. And
whether you like the Yankees or you don't like the Yankees, kind of hard not to respect Mo.
Yeah.
I mean, he was a tremendous human being and just a tremendous player.
And then the second bullpen pitcher, if you play MLB The Show, you probably know who it's going to be because he's one of the best pitchers in MLB The Show. But that's going to be Goose Gossage. So Goose Gossage was the closer for those great late 70s Yankees teams with Reggie Jackson and Thurman Munson. And he was really good. I mean, he was really, I think he's really underrated. I'm pretty sure he has over 200 career saves, so, yeah.
Cool. So, do I have to follow the Yankees with the Tampa Bay Rays all-time lineup? Do I have to? I mean, we're talking about, like, Babe Ruth and Mickey Mantle and Derek Jeter and A-Rod and Yogi Berra and Lou Gehrig, and then we get to the Rays. Now, I'm not going to disparage our beloved Rays too much, but okay, so
their lineup's so bad.
Yeah, the Yankees have been around for over 100 years now.
Richest team.
Actually, I think 119 years, if I'm not mistaken, something like that.
1902, something.
Oh, 120 years. The Rays have been around for 24 years, so just keep that in mind, please. They've only been around since 1998. If they had over a 100-year history, they might have some other great players as well. So I'm just going to get right into it. Starting at catcher for your beloved Tampa Bay Rays, it's Dioner Navarro. And now you're going, wait, who? Yeah, Dioner Navarro. The Rays are not known for having the greatest catchers in history. I actually argued with Gabriel a little bit on this. I said, it probably should be Mike Zunino because he was an all-star and put up 30 homers last year. Great defensive catcher. But he's only been with the Rays for a few years too. We looked up Dioner Navarro. He was really a centerpiece on their first World Series team in 2008. He was an all-star that year. He hit like 295 that year, and he had a few other somewhat decent years with them. Catcher is just not a strong position for the Rays. They've kind of always suffered at that position. So now we get a little bit better. First base, Fred McGriff.
And also, I had a little bit of a debate with myself when I was doing the research because Carlos Pena is also a first baseman.
Yes.
But I said it's Fred McGriff because he was their best player on their original team, and he was probably a little bit better.
Yeah, so Fred McGriff, and some of you may be like, oh, well, they rented him for 2 years at the end of his career and blah, blah, blah. Well, he played with them for a little while. He was the best player on their original team by quite a bit. He was still putting up really big numbers when he came to the original 98-99 Rays. And he's just a fantastic player. He's got, 475 career homers or something like that. Yeah. So second base, another one that was fairly easy. A player from kind of the early like glamour period of the Rays, just as they were getting good in like 2008, 2009, 2010. Ben Zobrist, good fielder, still holds a couple of team records, I think, for various things. Yeah. But I see his name in the record books for the team. Third base, probably the easiest one on here because he holds like every Rays home run record, and that's Evan Longoria, who plays for the Giants now. He got traded a few years ago. He hit over 250 career homers with the Rays, which is probably a mark that's going to stand for quite a while because they just don't hold on to players long enough to hit more home runs than that. Let's see. Shortstop is one that I predict this person will probably be surpassed in the next year or so if Wander ends up performing really well. But for right now, it's actually Willy Adames, and we watched Willie do some pretty incredible things for a little over 2 years with the Rays, and felt like his young energy was just palpable there. So Willy Adames. Left field, the speedster, stole 6 bases in a game, could hit for decent power when he wanted to, could hit for a decent average, and was just a pain in the you-know-what to opposing pitchers when he got on base, and that's Carl Crawford. He was a lot of fun to watch, and I remember at the time, this is going back to like 2009, 2010, I was actually still a Yankees fan. Yeah, I grew up a Yankees fan before converting over, I know. Before moving to Florida and converting over at the time, and I used to listen to Yankees games on the radio, and when they were playing the Rays, Carl Crawford would drive me crazy because he got on base and it was just like, he would steal second and then he would steal third and then they would hit him home, and, just drove everybody nuts. Center field, another one that's pretty easy, never had much of a bat, but is probably the greatest fielder in the history of the Rays, Kevin Kiermeier. Is actually hitting a little better this year, too. Yeah,
hitting for some power.
Yeah, his last like 15 games, he's hitting like over 400. So he's not a little no pool noodle anymore. Maybe we've upgraded now to
we've upgraded to like a hot dog.
Yeah, he's hitting with a hot dog now. Absolutely. Right field, Aubry Huff, and this is a player, admittedly, that I don't know as much about. Did you do any research on Aubry Huff?
Well, he had a couple like goodish years. There wasn't really anybody to choose for right field. A couple goodish years in like the Rays like early period when they were starting to get really good with like Ben Zobrist and Evan Longoria in like 2008, 2010. And yeah, he was like a 20 home run, like 270 hitter with like a 810 OPS. He did nothing really special.
This is another one where we felt like recently you could put Austin Meadows in there as well because they did play Austin Meadows in right field.
I just think he didn't play long enough.
No, Austin Meadows only had like one good year with the Rays, really. Yeah. So this is one where we rewarded somebody who had a few good years with the team versus somebody who just had one. Starting pitcher, this was a little bit of a discussion as well because we had names to choose from like Charlie Morton, like Tyler Glasnow, like Blake Snell, but the one that we chose ultimately was David Price, 2012 AL Cy Young winner, and we felt like he just contributed enough over a long enough period that he is it for right now. We're hoping that Tyler Glasnow can come back and eventually take that top spot.
And if not, then maybe Shane McClanahan.
Maybe Shane McClanahan, who's actually leading MLB in strikeouts right now as we do this video. Relief pitcher, Grant Balfour. So you can talk about Grant Balfour because, again, I don't know as much about Grant Balfour.
Grant Balfour, he was their main like closer relief pitcher from like 2008 to 2012. And he was good. I mean, he got like 20 saves a year. He had like a 2.5 to 3 ERA each year, so not bad.
And then
just a good pitcher.
Yeah, and then to close it out, we've got J.P. Howell in the other bullpen spot, and we kind of felt like he was one of those people that contributed just enough to get on the list. He played for the Rays, I think, for 6 full seasons. I think he missed the 2010 season. There he had an injury going on or something. But decent numbers, not a great whip, but kind of put up just enough to make it onto the list. But we feel like there's a whole stable of guys in the bullpen right now that if they stick around for a couple years and keep performing with the Rays like they are right now, like J.P. Fireheisen, who's got a 0 ERA through like 23 innings this year. He sticks around and keeps doing that for a couple more years. He'll easily be on this list. Mm-hmm. And we finish it off with the Blue Jays, with Gabriel.
So the Blue Jays were easier-ish than the Rays. Not as easy as the Yankees. They're like middle of the pack in terms of, players they've had over the years. But for catcher, this was one of their, more weak positions. This was Russell Martin, who a lot of people forgot about since he retired a couple years ago. He played with the Blue Jays from 2015 to about 2018, I'm pretty sure. And he was solid. I mean, he was like an offensive first catcher. He hit maybe 15 to 20 home runs a year at most. But there's no one else to pick. So first base, this was a strong position for the Blue Jays. They had Edwin Encarnacion, Carlos Delgado, and John Olerud. I ended up going with Carlos Delgado because I feel like out of those three players, he's the best offensively. I mean, defense doesn't really matter at first base, but John Olerud was better defensively. But Carlos Delgado, a great hitter, had over 400 career home runs. And, he's a really good player, so we got him at first.
And growing up in upstate New York, where I grew up, Carlos Delgado actually played his AAA ball for Toronto's affiliate in Syracuse. So Syracuse, they were called the Syracuse Sky Chiefs at the time. And he just mashed. I remember this was in the early 90s, and he just absolutely hit the cover off the ball with them. And he actually moved up to MLB very quickly. But he was one of those players where the local news would cover him and how he was playing for the Sky Chiefs, and you could just see excitement on everyone's faces because you knew he was going to be a star.
Yes. So second base, Roberto Alomar. He is maybe the best player in the history of the franchise. He is known as being a Blue Jay. He had a period from 1995 to 2002 with the Blue Jays where he was constantly posting 280 averages to 300 averages. OPS is around 830 and 20-ish home runs, 70 RBIs. So he was a really good player and a really great fielder too. So now at third base we have the bringer of rain, Josh Donaldson, who played for the Blue Jays from 2015 to 2018, and he won the MVP award in 2015 with a monster season, hitting over 40 home runs, 110 RBIs, and just a crazy season. And he is great offensively, tons of power, and he hits for a pretty good average. Defensively, he's actually better than you would think for a power guy. He's not as good defensively now as he was, but back when he was with the Blue Jays, he was one of the best defensive third basemen in the game.
Not the most likable guy, but
no.
A good.
He plays angry.
Yeah.
Okay, so shortstop we have Tony Fernandez, who's actually one of the most he's one of the better players in Blue Jays history, believe it or not. You just might not recognize him, but he played in the 80s and early 90s, and he didn't hit for a ton of power. He had maybe 70 home runs over 5 years, but he hit for a pretty good average, and he was a really good fielder. So yeah, he's shortstop. Now for left field, one of your favorite players, I would say.
My former favorite player. He was my favorite player in 1988-89.
Yeah, so this is George Bell, who won the MVP award in, I believe, 87?
Yep, AL MVP 87.
Yeah, and so George Bell was very good with the Blue Jays. He had an amazing year in 1987, had a great bat. I don't really know how good he was defensively.
He was okay. I'd say he was kind of average defensively. He was more known for his bat. But he had 47 homers in 87, and then kind of never came close to that again.
Yeah, he was kind of like a one-year wonder, but he was good in some other years. In center field, we have Vernon Wells, who played for the team in the late 90s and early 2000s. And he hit for a little bit of power. He was known for his hitting. Wasn't a great fielder, but he, I'm pretty sure he averaged 20-ish home runs a year, maybe a 790 OPS, maybe 800. And he was okay. I mean, center field is not the best position for the Blue Jays. But now for right field. This was between two guys. It was Jose Bautista and can't remember the other guy.
I'm trying to remember the other guy,
yeah.
too.
Joe Carter.
Oh, yes.
It was between Jose Bautista.
Mr. 93 World Series walk-off.
And Joe Carter. I chose Jose Bautista just because, Joe Carter was very good, but he's only really known for that one walk-off, and Jose Bautista is known for being a crazy good power hitter in the early to mid 2000 teens. Of course, he had like 50 home runs in one year and like 45 in another. He was just a great power hitter.
He ended up with over 400 for his career, didn't he?
Some 300.
Right. Okay.
Yeah. But yeah, so that's the Blue Jays hitting. Now for the pitching. For the starting pitcher, we have Roy Halladay, who was amazing when he was with the Blue Jays. One of the best pitchers in baseball from like 2003 to 2008-ish. He was great when he was on the Phillies too, but
we did take him over Roger Clemens. We know Roger Clemens spent some time north of the border with the Blue Jays as well, but just thought that Roy Halladay was just a notch above Clemens. Clemens, I don't think, had his best years with the Blue Jays.
No, he had his best years with the Yankees and Red Sox.
Yeah.
But Roy Halladay, amazing pitcher. He averaged like a 2.83 ERA each year, struck out close to 200 batters, like a whip hovering around 1. He was just amazing. Now for the bullpen pitchers, they're basically just two of the same guy. You've probably never heard of either, but one is Jason Frazier. He pitched in the late 90s and 2000s, but he was like a 3.2 ERA guy, 1 whip, and then Scott Downs, who was literally like the same exact pitcher, 3.2 ERA, 1 whip, and that's pretty much it.
That's it for the Blue Jays?
Mm-hmm.
All right. Anything else you want to add?
Nope.
You definitely don't want to talk about your arm?
No.
No more talking about the arm. Okay. Well, we sincerely hope you've enjoyed this video. And again, this will be one in a series. We'll do each division. What's the next division that we're going to do?
AL Central.
All right. So we'll move across the AL. So look for our AL Central video coming up. We really hope you've enjoyed this. Please feel free to post comments down below telling us who you think the top Yankees or the all-time Yankee starters should be, or the all-time Blue Jays or Rays starters, or whoever. Feel free to argue with us. That's always fun to get into a good discussion. We hope everybody's happy and healthy out there, enjoying the baseball season, and go Rays, as always. We'll see you later.